Asif, who was injured by a bullet while in the container. We were then driven to Shavagal prison, which is also in the north, a province of Mazar Sharif, which took almost a day. There were hundreds of trucks. Once we got to the prison, there were massive ditches dug. And those containers, in those containers where people suffocated and were severely injured, they were taken off and thrown into the ditches. And bulldozers were brought and the sand was just thrown on top of them. Some of them were injured, still alive, and they all were buried, which I witnessed with my own eyes. Me and Shafiq were put in the same container, and my friend Asif was in the metal container. He survived.
Mr. Ahmad, just a minute. Could you confirm in Mazar Sharif and in Shabargam, were there American presence?
Yes.
Carry on.
When we got to the Shabargam prison, which was run by the Northern Lines, supervised by the Americans, we were beaten, then put into our cells. My friend Asif was shot in his elbow, and his wound wasn't attended to. They only gave him iodine and they wrapped a bandage around him. Many people died in that prison because they was injured, severely injured. In my cell, I was with the Arabs in room number 1 and 2, and one Arab was shot in his shoulder, and the bullet exited through, and he took most of his jaw out. He died in my room. We was never questioned by the Northern Alliance. I spent 2 weeks without water or food, and we had cells which was 5 meters by 5 meters, and in each cell there was about 40 people per cell. After the second week of being there, the International Red Cross came and they gave us food and water. Then on the 31st of December 2001, a prison guard came and asked for an English-speaking person who would volunteer to speak to the press, to the media, and I said I would go out and speak. They took me out, they stripped me naked, tied my hands behind my back, and they marched me out of the prison and sat me down 6 feet away from a American soldier. Then I was taken to a room and I was questioned by the American, and I told them that I was from the UK, and I told him how we ended up in Afghanistan. And then he said to me, now you are in American custody and you'll be treated much better than you've been treated by the Northern Alliance. I was taken out, and then I was hooded and taken into a room and punched and kicked. Then I was put onto a truck and taken to an airport in Shologan. In the plane, we was made to lie down and tied with ropes, and if you moved, you would be punched and kicked or hit with the butt of a gun. The same method that Moses has described, the way we would be tied on the planes. I was taken to Kandahar, and my hands were tied behind my back, my feet were tied with plastic ties, a hood was placed over my head. Once I got to Kandahar, they made me walk around in a circle for many hours. It was midnight, past midnight, no shoes, barely any clothes, it was freezing cold, and they made me walk around for many hours. And they had dogs barking at us. Then I was taken into a tent, carried by 2 soldiers. My hood was taken off me, I was photographed, fingerprints were taken, a swab was taken, and a strand of my beard. Then they put me into a hangar, as Moses has described. But at that particular time, the hangar was divided into sections where there was 10 people, 10 detainees were kept in one place. We was given no water or food for the first day. The next day, I was interrogated the way Mosman had described, and kneeling down with the hands on the head, with a soldier with his handgun to my head. And then I was put into the tents in Kandahar, which was a makeshift prison. In each tent there was about 20 people per tent, and we was given a blue uniform to wear. Throughout my stay in Kandahar for 6 weeks, I was interrogated by the FBI, the CIA, and I was once visited by the MI5. Throughout the interrogation and my stay, I was abused, punched, kicked, spat on. Then, on the 14th of February 2002, I was taken to a different tent, and my hair and my beard was shaved, clothes was cut off with a pair of Stanley blade, and they put me into a 3-piece suit with an orange jumpsuit, goggles, blacked out, earmuffs, and I had mittens on my hands, and which was duct taped. Then I was put onto a plane, and I was tied in a different position from the first plane, which was seated. I was seated down, but a chain or a strap was placed on my chest, and my feet were shackled to the floor, so I couldn't move my legs. And the journey took more than, I think, a day and a half. I did stop somewhere, and it was extremely hot when I changed planes. Then once I got to Guantanamo, we was thrown off the plane, put onto trucks, driven to the port. We had to get on a ferry to get to Guantanamo. And on the ship, or on the ferry, I was beaten. And it was a beating that I've never had. I was kicked in my left thigh over a number of times in the same place because I kept on moving and because I was from the UK. Once I got to Guantanamo, I was taken through a process, as they call it. We had to go through this tent. I was stripped, given a bar of soap to shower, with my hands still tied. Then I was taken through the tent, and a full cavity search was done. Photographs were taken, fingerprints, swab, and so forth. Then I was taken to my cell. Which was about 2.5 meters by 3 meters, with one blanket, one insulation mat to sleep on. The floor was made of cement, and the 4 walls, and the roof was made of some type of softer material that you see in tennis courts, which I later realized that was in Guantanamo. I never knew, and neither was told I was being transferred to Guantanamo. The next day I was interrogated by the Americans, and I was asked personal background and family details. The day after, I was interrogated by the British intelligence and the Foreign Office, and they told me that they couldn't do nothing for me because they didn't have any jurisdiction in Guantanamo. And the Americans would say that they can't release me because the British don't want me home. Throughout my detention, I was accused of many things. First of all, I was accused of being a foot soldier for the Taliban. And as time went on in Guantanamo, the accusation got bigger. So from a normal foot soldier, I became